our inaugural cities. Sibling Cities USA facilitates relationships between distant US cities using 3 pillars of connection: community, commerce, and civil discourse. For community, we connect residents engaged in service organizations, the arts, education, multi-faith groups, sports, and more to get to know each other and see the tremendous talent, goodwill, and unique attributes of people all across our country. For commerce, residents will explore economic collaboration across regions to put the talents of all Americans to their best use so that all boats rise. Once we get to know each other, the civil discourse pillar will help us have respectful conversations across the miles to build understanding around issues facing our nation. There is a yearning in America today to get out of this situation we find ourselves in, where we are polarized amidst uncomfortable levels of discord and distrust. It is Sibling Cities USA's goal to help. As Napoleon Bonaparte said, there is someone wiser than any of us, and that is all of us. So, congratulations to the mayors, the leaders, and the residents of Bloomington and Palo Alto for leading the way. When I approached the cities with this proposal, imagine how happy I was when I learned that then Palo Alto Mayor Tom Du Bois had already thought of it. Great minds. Mayor Du Bois championed the idea in his State of the City speech, and over the course of the last year, he, Bloomington Mayor John Hamilton, Bob Wenslow, Karen Howe-Fernandez, Andy Reid, and many others in each city got excited, got involved, and brought us to this exciting day. In the last couple months, Mayors Du Bois and Hamilton brought resolutions to enter this sibling city relationship to their city councils, which passed with flying colors. To live into this vision, each city has a coordinator. In Bloomington, it is Karen Howe-Fernandez, who is building a terrific network of leaders to spearhead connections there. In Palo Alto, Neighbors Abroad has decades of success representing Palo Alto in its international sister cities relationships. And I'm delighted that they are expanding to represent Palo Alto in this first domestic relationship. Andy Reid is Neighbors Abroad's coordinator for Palo Alto. Andy and Karen will share more today about project explorations that are already underway. So let's get on with the signing ceremony. It is my pleasure to introduce Palo Alto Mayor Pat Burt, Bloomington Mayor John Hamilton, and former Palo Alto Mayor, now Council Member Tom Du Bois, who will make it official as we celebrate the start to what we believe will be an exciting, creative, meaningful, and long-lasting friendship between these two cities. Tom, over to you.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. And thank you, Vicki, for your leadership. I'm really thrilled that we're formally signing our Sibling City Agreement today. After a year of planning, we announced this in November. And as Vicki said, both of the city councils quickly passed it last year to make it happen. And so today we're celebrating this new relationship with a focus on increasing bonds with the United States, within the United States, connecting on our shared interests, culture, art, business, sustainability, and most of all, having some fun doing it. And I strongly believe in the ideas behind US-based sister sibling cities, building empathy, understanding, bridging differences. And I'm dedicated to making it a success. So Palo Alto has a different form of government than Bloomington. Here, the mayor is a council member and is elected for a one-year term by the city council. And so while I was mayor last year, we now have a new mayor, Pat Burt, who has joined me in his enthusiasm for getting this relationship going. So let me introduce Mayor Pat Burt.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks for all the work that you and Mayor Hamilton did last year, along with Vicki and our Neighbors Abroad program to bring this all together. I'm really excited about not just the relationship with Bloomington, which is a great city with a great university and a great history, and we really look forward to all the collaborations and shared learnings that we can do with each other. but as this is a foundation for a broader initiative that is going to bring more parts of America together and finding their common ground and sharing all of their cultures and technologies and relationships, that it's a really exciting movement, and we're just very glad to be part of it and glad to be getting together with our new sibling in Bloomington. And I also want to recognize Vice Mayor Lydia Koo, who was co-sponsor of our council initiative to adopt the Sibling Cities program, and there's Lydia, and our and specifically our partnership with Bloomington. So thank you very much, and on to Mayor Hamilton.
Thank you very much. It's great getting three mayors to keep our remarks short. We're all doing our best at that. Thank you. It is so exciting to be joining as a sibling city today with Palo Alto. I want to thank everybody who's helped make that possible. You've heard that reference to many folks before. Mayors Du Bois and Bert, thank you for all your work on this. I too will just say, I think mayors are particularly sensitive maybe to the idea of knitting communities together and knitting peoples together. We know how important it is to work together, how divisiveness can create stress and difficulty, and how much can get done when we knit together again. And it's been a rough few years, and thank you so much, Sibling Cities USA, for this idea of trying to help chip away at this and really knit us together. I think it's a wonderful concept. We're very excited to be working with Palo Alto. And of course, it can be fun too, to collaborate and work together and knit together. So we look forward to that being the first pair. We're very excited about that. I will also mention in our structure of government, we have an elected mayor that serves 4-year terms and elected 9-member city council. And we have with us today Vice President of the current City Council, Sue Scambolari. Wave, if you will. Sue, thanks for being here. President Susan Sandberg was unavoidably not able to be here today. We have Deputy Mayor Don Griffin, who's a full-time Deputy Mayor for the city. And then last year's president, who really spearheaded and shepherded this through, is joining with us as well. And Jim Sims, I'm going to hand it to you because you get to do the duty of getting this thing signed while we do it. Thank you all for being here.
All right, thank you, Mayor Hamilton. It's very, very nice to hear the mayors keep it brief. And as we know, city council members can have the same challenges. Before I get started, I'd like to wish everyone a happy Black History Month. And I hope we're all able to celebrate and learn some things and get closer to that civil discourse part that Vicki spoke of earlier. It is my honor to be here today to speak on behalf of current President, Councilmember Susan Sandberg, and I'm looking at Council Vice President Sue Scambolari, who was also the Vice President last year, as we met with Vicki and Mayor Du Bois and Mayor Hamilton and Vice Mayor Don Griffin to get this exciting sister cities relationship started. So I will say, I'm not sure I can stay the entire program today. I wish I could. I do have a funeral to attend at my home church in a little bit. But without further ado, it is my honor and pleasure to read into the record this agreement for the establishment of a sibling city relationship. I'm not so sure if I could say this, but I think while we're doing this, that the mayors will indeed sign the documents in their slots on their parts. Thank you. And it reads as follows. The city of Bloomington, Indiana, and the city of Palo Alto, California, share a common interest in promoting understanding, friendship, and relationship with their fellow Americans across the miles. The city councils of Bloomington and Palo Alto have each adopted resolutions to promote this common interest by entering a sibling city relationship between the two cities and have authorized their mayors to enter this agreement. Sibling Cities USA was founded in 2021 to promote relationships between US cities and promote national unity through 3 pillars of connection. Those are community, commerce, and civil discourse. Therefore, the two cities agree to build connections in the areas of community, commerce, and civil discourse, and in particular, education, technology, sustainability practices, culture, business, sports, and the arts. And therefore, I hereby proclaim themselves sibling cities effective as of December 1st, 2021, the date on which both city councils had passed authorizing resolutions. The agreement shall remain in force in perpetuity so long as neither city terminates it. And at the bottom, it has Mayor John Hamilton, City of Bloomington, Pat Burt, Mayor, City of Palo Alto, and former Mayor Tom Du Bois, City of Palo Alto. Executed this 15th day of February 2022. Congratulations. Can we get a round of applause, please? Thank you very much.
So that was a virtual Zoom signing. Each of us signed a copy, and I'm glad I got to participate as a former mayor. Now we're going to hear from a person who's put up some truly gaudy numbers. 1,143 wins, the most wins in women's basketball. 3 times Naismith Coach of the Year. She coached Team USA to a gold in 1996. 16 times the Pac-12 Coach of the Year. 93 NCAA tournament wins. 3 national championships, and a lot of NCAA Final Fours, Elite Eights, and Sweet 16s. And she did all this, she did a lot of this in an academic environment at Stanford University, where she's run a program that's turned out not only great ball players, but great leaders who go on to do great things, whether in sports or elsewhere. 30 of her players went on to play in the WNBA. 21 of her players have become coaches or women engaged in basketball management. And Coach Tara VanDerveer is also a Hoosier, and she's in the Indiana University Athletic Hall of Fame. After attending another college for 1 year, she was starting guard for 3 years at Indiana and on the dean's list for each of those 3 years. I'm from Ohio, so I have to mention that she had 2 successful stints coaching at Ohio State before taking the job at Stanford, where she quickly turned the program around. She's also known to be a great piano player, an opera fan, and a sailor. And she joins us in the midst of the current season with Stanford ranked number 2 in the country. So Coach Tara VanDerveer, welcome.
Tom, thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me to be part of this. You know, I couldn't think of a better sibling city for Palo Alto than Bloomington. And I'm biased because, first of all, I think that both places are really defined by the great universities that are part of their community. Having attended Indiana University, you know, and working now at Stanford University, everyone says to me, "Oh, Stanford's the most beautiful university in the world." I said, well, I think it's tied with Indiana University. Both universities are such extraordinary places. So my experience is with 2 of the greatest universities in the world. And also, I think 2 of the greatest communities in the world. What I remember, I was a transfer to Indiana. I just remember the friendliness of the people, whether it was in Bloomington or, you know, at the university, the professors, the fellow students. And then, of course, it was also the basketball. I was just a basketball gym rat, a nut. I was there when Coach Bobby Knight was the head coach of the men. I watched all of their practices. So basketball has been a big part of my life, obviously, and learning so much from Coach Knight, my former coach, who unfortunately passed away. B. Gordon was a great coach at Indiana. And, you know, I feel like I brought all the things that I learned at Indiana to Stanford in my coaching experience. As a coach, one of the things that I really feel is the most important part of our team is the fact that we have a sisterhood. So the fact that we are sister or sibling cities. When you're a sibling, you treat each other in a way that's different than maybe even a teammate. And we're fortunate on our team, we have a set of twins, and we've had a number of sisters. And when you have sisters on your basketball team, your chemistry is different. And I think that what people on a team, when they're sisters, they really relate to each other on a really positive, a different way. So if we can encourage sibling or sisterhood between us and the people of both cities, Palo Alto and Bloomington, I think that will be a great service. What I hope is that maybe we can encourage some of the Indiana University basketball and maybe other sports teams to come out and play Stanford and maybe get something going that way too, that might encourage people getting to know each other. So thank you very much for the invitation to be part of this program. I'm really excited. When I think of the one thing I would say, what I really miss here, we got a lot of rain in Bloomington. And Bloomington, if you could send us some of your water, that would be great. The only thing, we really lack that out here in California. But we're communities that share, I think, the same values of, I think, just wanting to be good citizens, part of a great community. And I'm really excited to be involved with this sister city. So thank you all very much for your invitation. And I'm really excited to see where this goes.
Thank you, Tara. And best of luck with the rest of your season. And we really appreciate you taking some time to join us today. It's my pleasure to introduce the mayor of Bloomington, John Hamilton. Is a Bloomington native. And though he did go to one of those colleges in Boston at one point, John has had an impressive career in public service, working at the state level, leading 2 state agencies, advising a governor and a lieutenant governor, and he now serving as an elected official himself. And he's really been great to work with on this sibling city relationship. He's a really nice guy and a positive force in making this happen. So, John, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mayor Tom. Again, appreciate it. Quickly just jumping in. So here's a kind of cool thing. We found out so quickly that these sibling cities happen to have some siblings who are sharing this relationship. Thank you, Tim. We're learning all kinds of relationships. So we have a little special treat today that we have some sets of siblings who are joining us to help us go a little deeper into the sibling city relationship. And I'm going to ask each of you 2 questions. We'll do a round each. We'll go around and let you talk a little bit about yourself. But we have Brad and Scott Fulton, who, if you wave, you can explain your relationship to these cities. And we also have Kendall and Katie Smith, who are sisters, the brothers and the sisters. And it's so cool that our sibling city kickoff, we get to talk to a couple sets of siblings from the sibling city. So first question I wanted to ask each of you, and I'll start with the Fultons, is tell me, if you can, tell us something about what you love in your current city, what your current city is, and just share something that you love in that city. But Scott, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I'm in Palo Alto, and the Bay Area can be pretty transient. But Palo Alto has an incredible amount of history, for a small town, and has a great sense of community. We've been here 10 years, and it's the best place we've ever lived.
All right, Brad.
Well, I definitely like the relatively low housing prices. My 5-minute commute is pretty nice as well. And although Coach VanDerveer mentioned the rain, she neglected to mention the snow, which we don't get enough snow, but we get more than Palo Alto. So those are the 3 highlights of Bloomington for me.
Thank you, you 2 brothers. Well, I'll come back to you with another question, but let me go to Kendall, if I can start with you with the same question here in Bloomington.
Yeah, so I'm in Bloomington and also a student at Indiana University. I would have to say my favorite part about being in Bloomington is the community. Coming from a small town in Indiana, I've never experienced diversity of culture and ideas like this. It's a really great place to be. There's always something going on and a great way to be connected with others around you. So yeah, that's definitely my favorite part of Bloomington.
Thank you, thank you. And Katie from Palo Alto, Stanford.
Hi, yeah. Ironically, I was going to say something so similar to my sister. I have met so many people from different walks of life, and we've all congregated here at Palo Alto, and it's been really, really great to meet people and just have diversity of opinion, thoughts, ethnicity, etc.
Nice, nice. Well, we so I hope you all feel the kind of, I don't know, the harmony, the spirit of siblings talking about sibling cities. We appreciate that. All right, so the second question I'm going to give you, and thank you all again for being here, is okay. Thinking about in your current city where you live, if you tell somebody, "Oh, I got a sibling who lives in, you know, the other city," or if you admit that, I don't know if you do, but what people say about that, how they react to it, or if you don't want to do that, how you think about the other city. But you know, if you're chatting with friends and say, "Oh, my sister's in Bloomington," or "My sister's in Palo Alto," or "My brother," whatever, how do people react in your current city? And we'll go in the same order, except I'll go this time. Let's do Brad first, and then Scott, and then we'll come down to the sisters too.
Well, you know, sometimes they think, oh, crazy California. And then I mentioned Palo Alto and they're like, how do they afford to live there? And, so it makes it even more crazy. But if anything, it's the type of place they'd love to visit, but not necessarily live in. Now that's from an Indiana perspective. I used to live out in Palo Alto area, and I love that as well. So it's a tough competition.
Okay, Scott.
Yeah, I'd say their first reaction is great basketball. Honestly, that's the reaction. And the two teams don't play each other that often, but I looked up the stat, and the men have played 5 times, and Indiana's won all 5 times. And I think the women, the coach might correct me, but I think the women played last year, and the Stanford women won. So anyway, people think of basketball.
Great. Okay, let's try. Katie, you go first this time. When you remind them you're a Hoosier, what do they know about Bloomington if you mention that?
Yeah, a lot of students here don't know a lot about Indiana. They think corn or something. But I'm always gushing about Bloomington. I'm always telling them we have to visit Bloomington because I've had some really great times there with my siblings. So I think I've gotten the Stanford community rallied to go visit Bloomington.
Great. And Kendall, you're actually even involved in this a little bit in the Sibling City stuff formally, which is great. But how do people react when you talk about that?
Usually it's about the weather, especially with all the snow we've been getting here. They're like, "Oh wow, it must be so nice to not have to deal with the snow." I'd say that's definitely the first reaction. Other than that, I think a lot of people here haven't really got the chance to see the West Coast. So they're just kind of more curious about it. And they ask usually if I've been there and what my experience is with it. But a lot of curiosity, honestly.
Great. Well, there's no pressure. First siblings, we're highlighting of the first sibling city in America or anything, but we really appreciate you both sets being here, helping us understand the natural linkages that are there and sharing a little bit about that. And we encourage you to keep those family ties strong. All right, because we're working that. So I'm going to hand it off to Mayor Burt. Thank you all 4 of you for being with us. And Mayor Burt, off to you for another little episode.
Yeah, thanks. So that was great. I'll add that we're both great bike towns, and looking forward to riding out in Bloomington. So I think I'm supposed to kick off a series of trivia questions about the 2 cities. And let me ask the audience a couple questions, and this is going to be self-reporting. So at the end, raise your hand if you got all 4 right when we get done. So first was, which musicians were not from Palo Alto? And here they are up on the screen. Okay. Second question, and that's just to read it off. The first is Grace Slick of the Jefferson Airplane and Starship. Second is the Grateful Dead. third is Joan Baez, and the fourth is Lindsay Buckingham and Christy McVie who played together. And the second question is, which hard rock icon was born in Bloomington in 1954? Was it Ozzy Osbourne, Steven Tyler, David Lee Roth, or Slash? Okay. So let me give the answers to the first two, and then we'll go in the second round. On the first question, it was actually Lindsay Buckingham and Christy McVie, although Lindsay Buckingham was born at Stanford Hospital in Palo Alto, but he lived next door. And on the second question, it's David Lee Roth. All right, so you keep track of how many you won. Round two, which company did not have its founding offices in Palo Alto? Tesla, HP or Hewlett Packard, Google, or Facebook? And there we go. And then on the Bloomington side, which building is not made of Indiana limestone quarried near Bloomington? The Empire State Building, the Biltmore Estate, the Jefferson Memorial, or the National Cathedral? Okay, let's see how we're populating answers. So on the first question, the answer is Tesla. Even though they've been headquartered here for a decade, they were founded up in San Carlos, a few miles away. And then on the second question, the answer on Bloomington is the Jefferson Memorial, although the Lincoln Memorial is made of Indiana limestone. So if you got all four, raise your hand. Looks like we stumped a few folks. That's great. All right. So I think on that note, I turn it over to the city coordinators, Karen and Andy.
Thank you, Mayor Burt. I'm Karen Howe-Fernandez, Bloomington Coordinator for Sibling Cities USA, or as we like to shorten it sometimes, SCUSA. I am here with my counterpart, Andy Reid, the Palo Alto Coordinator. Thank you so much for joining us today. I can't believe what great turnout we have. Andy and I are going to tell you why we got involved with SCUSA, what we are doing, and how you can become a part of it. I learned about Sibling Cities at a time when I had been actively working to understand the growing hostility and polarization in our country. I was looking for a way to help people speak to and hear each other across real and perceived divides. And when Vicki told me about her ideas for Sibling Cities with its 3-pillar structure for connecting distant cities through community engagement, commerce, and ultimately civil discourse, I knew this was my chance. So Vicki and Andy and I knew what we wanted to accomplish, which was city partnerships with the support from their respective governments, providing a framework for interaction between individuals and groups to showcase their cultures, explore common values, and build trust. And we got overwhelming support from the city governments, and then our economic development community and our service organizations. Thank you, Bloomington Alto and Palo Alto folks, because with all of your support, your advice, and your buy-in, we also received great responses from the public. So the what was underway, but how to accomplish this is an evolving process. We know that SCUSA can make the connections, but the ideas and the relationships are up to the siblings. In short, we connect and you create. So how this has worked out in practice so far is that someone, usually a representative from a larger group, but not always, contacts Andy or me or Vicki and says, hey, I'd like to meet my counterpart in Bloomington or Palo Alto. And then Andy and I set to work to find a partner. We introduced the partner to SCUSA and our mission. We asked if they would be interested in making the connection. One of the first groups to do this was the Palo Alto Chamber of Commerce. And you may think, but chambers of commerce are local parts of a national group. Why do they need SCUSA? They need SCUSA because Sibling Cities provides the context or the reason for the outreach, as well as the introduction. SCUSA fosters a relationship with a purpose to work within. And as of today, we have 7 connections and 2 or 3 others that we're working on contacts for. And that's just in about 8 weeks' time. The Rotary clubs, of which there are 5 between the 2 cities, are already planning Sibling City visits. So if you or someone you know would like to find a sibling for your organization or for a project you have in mind, or just want to know more about us, you can email me or Andy. And I believe those email addresses are going to show up in the chat. That's bloomington@siblingcitiesusa.org or Palo Alto@siblingcitiesusa.org, or email us through our website, siblingcitiesusa.org. We have the Sibling Cities of Palo Alto and Bloomington. We have the framework for cultural, commercial, and civic exchanges, and we cannot wait to help you start the discourse. So now I'm happy to introduce you to Palo Alto Coordinator, Andy Reid. Andy?
Thank you, Karen. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. This is really a great turnout. My name is Andy Reid, and I represent Neighbors Abroad, Palo Alto's long-established community nonprofit supporting our 8 international sister cities. Bloomington is our first domestic sibling city, and we are proud to reach out and meet our neighbors in a geographically distant and distinctly different part of the same country. When I first learned of the idea of sibling cities, it fit in very well with my own feeling that our country is torn apart by quickly drawn stereotypes. But my optimistic side tells me our values can't be all that different. I was excited to find there's a national program designed to connect US cities in this time of destructive polarization between coasts and big metropolitan areas and heartland mid-country cities and smaller towns. As in many cities and towns, volunteers provide a significant force that serves schools, libraries, sports, and other nonprofits. In this case, former Mayor Tom Du Bois formed a steering committee of civic leaders that during 2021 assessed the willingness and enthusiasm for Sibling City USA's 3 Pillars program to connect with Bloomington, Indiana through community, commerce, and civil discourse. I'm a local grassroots volunteer since retiring from public accounting a few years ago, and I act as a coordinator for Palo Alto. In my experience, establishing relationships is how all change succeeds. When neighbors meet neighbors and commiserate, offer help and understanding that leads to mutual benefit. 2 US cities at a time is a great start. City governments set the pace to support, promote, and give their imprimatur, but it will take the residents to step up. And that's where Karen and I come in. Folks learn about the program and want to participate. Getting from the talk to the walk is tricky because Sibling Cities doesn't design your programs or prescribe results, but rely on each connection to organically discover what they can learn from and offer to their counterparts. We can help you find your counterparts. The one example I'll bring up is that I love the idea that Canopy Bloomington has recently organized, and Palo Alto's longtime urban tree advocates, Canopy Palo Alto, is reaching out to them. We can't wait to meet more interested groups and even individuals so that I can find your Bloomington counterparts. Don't hesitate to contact me via the siblingcitiesusa.org website, or as Karen pointed out, I believe it's in the chat. For me, I'm really glad that I found Karen. Relationships take time, but we look forward to seeing where these relationships can take us. Thanks again for coming. Back to Vicki Vinker.
Wow, thank you, Karen and Andy. You're off to such a great start, making introductions and connecting people who want to meet their counterparts. And what great examples. The beauty of Sibling Cities is that anyone can do it because you just do what you're already doing, be that theater, cooking, canopy, Chamber of Commerce work, going to school, and you simply do it with people in the other city to get to know them. So thanks so much to the two of you for leading us forward. Now, it is my true pleasure to welcome Reverend Cornell William Brooks to our program today. Cornell is a professor at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, where he is director of the Trotter Collaborative for Social Justice, and he is a visiting professor at Harvard's Divinity School. He is the former president and CEO of the NAACP, and while there, he led a 1,000-mile march called America's Journey for Justice from Selma, Alabama to Washington, D.C. over the course of 40 days. He has served as a civil rights lawyer at the Department of Justice and elsewhere, and is a fourth-generation ordained minister in the African Methodist Episcopal, or AME, Church. He holds a law degree from Yale, a Master of Divinity from Boston University, and a BA from Jackson State. And most important, Cornell, you were a summer research associate at the Kettering Foundation in 1983, which is where we met. So welcome, Cornell, and thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to see you and great to be with you, Vicki, and wonderful to be with all of these mayors, the coach, communities and citizens of all these cities at this extraordinary moment. So wonderful to be here.
Thank you. So Cornell, you get a lot of requests to sit on boards. What made you say yes to the Sibling Cities USA Advisory Board?
So Vicki, let me just share with you that for me, it wasn't so much a matter of an invitation to join a board. Many of us have had that experience, but it was more like an invitation to be a part of a movement. Let us note this: we are in this perilous moment in our democracy where, as you and so many have noted, there are these deep fissures of race and fault lines of class. And in this moment, to have a group of mayors and cities and citizens come together and decide that we want to recognize ourselves institutionally and civically as siblings, right? This is something to be excited about, something to rejoice in and certainly lend support to. So I didn't take it, as a standing invitation to yet another board. Many of us have had that experience, but to be a part of something far more exciting.
Great. Well, that's how we see it, as something far more exciting. And I'm so glad you did too. It's really been an honor to have you on board. As you know, Sibling Cities USA helps cities build relationships using 3 pillars of connection: community, commerce, and civil discourse. Mm-hmm. So when we were interns at the Kettering Foundation in the early 80s, I guess I shouldn't give a date, a while ago, Kettering
You were a wee child.
yeah, I was really young. But Kettering was starting up the National Issues Forums program then, which continues today, where Americans across the country hold town halls on domestic policy issues, somewhat similar to our civil discourse pillar. And, in addition to you, we are really fortunate at Sibling Cities that we have Kettering's president on our advisory boards who helped get that going. He's also a former cabinet secretary, David Matthews. We also have Rob Fursh, who founded Convergence Center for Policy Resolution that also convenes people around national issues. And we have Joan Blades, who's the co-founder of Living Room Conversations, who knows how to facilitate tough conversations. So we're lucky that we have a lot of people who can skillfully guide us when we get to the civil discourse pillar. So my question for you is, do you agree that baking civil discourse into this relationship and discussing national issues across the miles is an important element of our program? And if so, why?
So let me note this. My answer to the question has everything to do with where I stand in answering the question. So as a former CEO of the NAACP, I spent many hours, weeks, years crisscrossing the country, talking to mayors, walking into cities in crisis. And in those moments where there were crises related to policing, crises related to civil rights disturbances and injustices, in those moments, what I noted again and again, whether it be in Flint, in Ferguson, in Charleston, cities all across the country, that in those moments of crisis and pressure and tension, there was a collective call for discourse. So even in the midst of crisis, people had an intuitive understanding of the importance of being in dialogue, in conversation. And so if that is true on the back end of a crisis, how much more true is it on the front end of a crisis and in the midst of all the challenges that we face as a democracy? So this notion of civil discourse, which I would note should be civil, compassionate, an appreciation of the somebodyness of the other, but also committed, meaning we talk when it's easy to talk, and we talk when it's difficult to talk, and we talk when we think we dare not talk at all. And so this notion of coming together in the fashion of the National Issues Forum, I think is incredibly, incredibly important. And I would note that all of our pressing democracy challenges with respect to the vote, the infrastructure of our democracy, are really challenges that relate to how we come together, how we deliberate, how we talk.
Well, thank you for that, because that pillar is really what distinguishes us as an organization. And it is the part of this relationship building for which I have very high hopes. So that's inspiring to keep pursuing it. So as you've heard earlier in this program, Palo Alto and Bloomington have a surprising number of connections. Coach VanDerveer, being home to actual siblings in these sibling cities,
Right.
Being the birthplace of well-known musicians, and many more great things that we keep discovering as we get to know each other. But the two cities also share a challenging history that is particularly pertinent given that it is Black History Month and the month during which the NAACP was founded.
Right.
By the way, Council Member Jim Sims, who read the agreement of Bloomington, who spoke earlier, he is a former president of the Monroe County NAACP.
He hit me up on the chat and reminded me.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Well, recently, both of our cities confronted their history with David Starr Jordan. Jordan was the president of Indiana University starting in 1885, before he moved to Palo Alto in 1891 to become the first president of Stanford. He was also a scientist who proclaimed eugenics and racial segregation. When this came to light in the last few years, Palo Alto renamed the middle school that my children attended from Jordan to Green Middle School in honor of Frank S. Green, a Black technologist and venture capitalist. In Bloomington, Mayor Hamilton recently stood with the Eagleson family as Bloomington renamed Jordan Avenue in the Eagleson family's honor. And their family includes several generations of accomplished scholars and leaders, including IU's first Black athlete and first Black woman graduate. So why is it important that even as we look forward to a better future together, that we also confront our common history as we strive to build a strong and productive relationship between these two cities?
Well, this is just so critical, and I'm so glad that you lifted up these chapters in Bloomington's history and Palo Alto's history. You know, one thing I would note is that we as a country find ourselves in what many have described as a racial reckoning. It in many ways is a reckoning with history and is a reckoning with the present as we contemplate how to embrace the future, meaning the degree to which we reclaim, acknowledge, confront old stories. It also provides us an opportunity to reclaim and engage and tell new stories, right? So in the same way that your children have, in effect, a new school to attend, even though it is an old school. Now, let me note two things about Indiana and Stanford. So my mother-in-law, Holly Pierce Broom, when Mississippi was in the throes in the ugly heyday of Jim Crow and declined to educate or provide graduate education for its citizens, she left Jackson, Mississippi to go to Bloomington for a graduate degree, right? So that's a story and a history that needs to be reclaimed and told for the present generation. Stanford, for those of us who are civil rights lawyers, understand the role that Stanford Law School has played in terms of scholarship, in terms of illuminating inclusive pathways for civil rights litigation. So my point being here is that we have to confront old stories, ugly stories. But we do that not to mire ourselves in the past, but to literally rewrite, reimagine stories for the future. And one of the best ways to do that is, yes, it's great to have the mayor's talk. Like I do work with the Bloomington Harvard Mayor's Initiative. It's great to have the mayor's talk. They are incredibly important. But we have to have the citizens talk, the neighbors talk, the communities talk, and engage. And part of that is storytelling. And the last point I'll make here is this: as a civil rights advocate, one of the things I've found is one of the best ways to empower people is to literally take their history and remind them of what they have done as a way of pointing to what they might do. So in other words, instead of the past being debilitating, it can be energizing and agency creating and imagination expanding. So, the Sibling Cities initiative is also a history reclamation initiative. So, a long answer to a short question.
Well, it's good counsel and something that we will try to live into as we move forward with this. So finally, that we're trying to expand beyond these two great cities to knit this country together by connecting other cities going forward. So what do you hope comes of this, of not just this relationship, but that of future sibling cities? Like, what do you in 5 years hope we can brag about?
Well, what I would imagine and hope for is a constellation of cities across the country, straddling and bridging racial and regional divides. So when you look, I'm from the Deep South. I grew up in the low country of South Carolina. I think it's incredibly important for cities in the South, the Midwest, the Upper Northwest, the Northeast, New England, to be yoked, to be in communion with one another. And so what I love to happen and to imagine is for sibling relationships between cities to be regular and routine and an expectation, specific expectation. In other words, we think that is the norm for us to be engaged with our sibling cities all across the country. So I would hope, as with any movement, you want the movement to grow, to expand, and to take what was a ceiling of expectation and make that a floor upon which you build.
Lovely. Well, I think I hear you lifting up that we should become a movement of peacemakers, and blessed are the peacemakers. So, Cornell, thank you so much for joining us today. Your work and your words are inspiring, and I'm personally glad to be reconnecting with you. And on behalf of Sibling Cities, it's just tremendous to have your support on this journey. So thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
So as you all can see from our program today, connecting with each other matters. And the good news is the possibilities are endless. I hope this has sparked your ideas for reaching out across the miles, because this is driven by you, by what you want to share and what you are curious about in the other city. We want to nurture a wide range of relationships so we can really get to know each other through our communities and commerce. Then we'll help people in Bloomington and Palo Alto really talk to each other, just like we were discussing with Cornell, with respect and trust, not necessarily to come to agreement, but to come to a better understanding. So before we part, I want to announce an upcoming happening. The flyer for this event and the Sibling Cities website are sporting a beautiful new logo. Thanks to Neighbors Abroad and Bob Wenslow for making that happen. We think there should also be a logo specific to the Bloomington-Palo Alto relationship. Now, given the talent in these two cities, in the next month or so, we will be launching a contest to design the Bloomington-Palo Alto Sibling Cities logo. So if you are a graphic designer or know someone who is, stay on the lookout for this healthy rivalry that's coming up. And that's not all that's upcoming. In addition to the connections Andy and Karen are building, over the course of the next year, we hope to have a delegation from Palo Alto visit Bloomington and vice versa. Perhaps we'll even swap mayors for a day. We'd really like to have a student exchange program if we can find the resources. And next fall or winter, we will start adding citizen discussions in town halls to foster the respectful civil discourse that we've been talking about. So friends, we are just getting started and we welcome all, and I mean all, to join us. And more can get involved at any time. It will never be too late because this is a relationship that we hope will grow, evolve, and endure over the years. And if you don't live in Palo Alto or Bloomington, I invite you to join us too. Go to our website and send us a note. We are expanding to other cities and we'd love your help. So while we're just getting going, something important has already happened. Leaders in both communities have already started coming together to make today possible. The amazing people you've heard from are just the tip of the iceberg. So many who are on this call or are elsewhere this morning have helped make this happen behind the scenes. They've served on steering committees. They've done other things to help us get going. They've explored and initiated connections. And every day there are more. They say it takes a village, and in this case, we have two. So go ahead, let yourself be encouraged. I am. We can do this. We are doing this. And finally, I can't possibly name all the people who have made today's event possible, but I would be remiss if I didn't at least thank the Reverend Professor and my friend Cornell William Brooks for his inspiring remarks. I mean, weren't those wonderful? His fellow Sibling Cities USA Advisory Board members, my fellow IU alumna, Coach Tara VanDerveer, who mentioned the wonders of living in these two great cities. Our two fabulous sets of actual siblings, wasn't that fun? Our county supervisor, mayors, and city council members, many of whom are on this call, who supported this idea, especially Mayor Hamilton, Mayor Burt, and former Mayor Du Bois. City staff, especially Chantal Cotton Gaines, Andrew Krebs, and Kaisa Goodman. Neighbors Abroad of Palo Alto, especially Ed Fike and Bob Wenslow, who were key to getting the word out about this event. And my deepest gratitude goes to our extraordinary city coordinators, Karen Howe Fernandez and Andy Reid. They put so much effort and passion into this work, and we are lucky that they will be coordinating our connections going forward. So thanks for helping us kick off this first of its kind relationship. Go out there and make connections, shatter stereotypes, and get to know each other. Join us in knitting this country back together. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right.
Very nice. Thank you. Look at those scenes.
Yeah, you have more fall leaves than we do.
Thanks, Vicki. That was fantastic.
It was fun.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was fabulous.
Lots of great input, lots of great help getting this happening. City Hall. and the other city hall.
Yeah.
Should have done a better picture of that one.
Everybody's got pubs.
These are gorgeous. We should get it up on the website.
Mm.
Not a quarry lake, but it's close. Actually, at the bottom, there is a quarry lake just outside the park.
Beautiful.
Up by the dish, I think.
We all have deer.
Yes.
We have mountain lions.
We need a couple.
Occasionally, they wander into our neighborhoods and they're less.
Well,
welcome.
that's a little exciting, perhaps.
Although we did just have a bald eagle in town for the first time in memory.
Oh, we got a lot of those. That's great to hear. That's great to hear.
Karen
Well,
and I have discussed connecting the bird watchers in the two towns.
Sure. Yeah. Add to your list.
We just had what was that weird dove?
Oriental turtle dove.
Yeah, that flew in from who knows where.
Well, thank you all. This was fantastic. And Vicki, thank you. Tom, Pat, everybody, appreciate it.
You bet.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks.
Well done, everyone.
Off to the day job.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Have a good day.
Have a good one, folks.